Welcome back to Non Niche. This is Raquel, and I'm so excited to introduce to you Mr. Ken Sexton. He is an editorial and fashion photographer. He has been in the game for, I think, the 70s, and honestly, I got more out of this interview than I expected. And he's a wonderful soul, and he has a great mind. And he's doing so much, and he's learned so many things. And this is truly why I started Non-Niche, is to, actually listen to people's on their path and how they got to where they are. And sometimes, it's nice to know how people get to their journey and through their journey, because not everything's just straightforward. And sometimes we think that foundationally everything's just straightforward, but no, sometimes you have to go up and down and around, and it is okay to do that. And sometimes you got to go to the path unpaved, make your own path, make your own blueprint. And he has done that. He's been through it all, he's seen it all, and he's had some awesome subjects to photograph. And I'm not going to do any more spoilers, so let's tune into the interview. Today it works.
Like that.
Yay, good evening. How are you?
I'm great.
That's good. Did you have a good week so far?
So far, it's been a really interesting week. A lot of good things.
That's good.
Really good energy in the air yesterday and today.
That's good.
There was something that changed early in the week. I guess I went to a concert on Monday, and that was pretty exciting.
Hey, concerts lately, yeah, they are making a good comeback.
It's great. It's great.
Music is better than, sometimes it's just like a whole different experience. So whenever you can go to a concert, I am there. So that's pretty cool. But I'm so excited to sit down with you and talk about more about your photography. So I guess the first question is just how did you kind of get started and figure out why you do what you want to do, and how you wanted to do it, and how you want to execute it?
That's a good question. I worked for weekly newspapers in high school. Mm-hmm. I started shooting for papers early. My newspaper and I separated, and there was nothing for me in St. Louis. I went to Chicago. Mm. Chicago is a great big town. I ended up working for the second largest camera store in the world.
Wow.
And that got me access to a lot of new equipment. The early 70s was a really exciting time to be in photography.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of magazines. There was new equipment. 35 millimeter was new. Mm-hmm. That's when everybody really started shooting with 35s. I thought I wanted to be a newspaper photographer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that was my thing. There weren't any jobs. Mm. I held the newspapers in Chicago, all the wire services. Nobody wanted to hire me. So I ended up, that was the first time I was homeless was in 73. After that, I ended up working with a community organization as their PR guy, and met a really interesting man named Iberis Hacker. And he turned me on to more of a social side of photography. Mm-hmm. So basically, I just shot for them a lot of anti-war stuff. I have pictures in the Peace Museum in Chicago. Yeah, it was an amazing experience. We'll talk about sometime.
Yeah.
Newspapers never worked out.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up, back then, two things happened. You sold stock photos for $15 a piece, and that was useless. That was all mail.
Oh,
So
okay.
you had to type out a letter and print the stuff and send it off, and maybe they'd buy it, and that was worthless.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up trying to work commercially.
Mm-hmm.
It took me like 5 years to get a assistant job in a big commercial photography studio. I ended up working for one of the largest in the country. We shot Sears, Wards, Pennies, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We used big cameras, 8 by 10, 11 by 14. Paid $2 an hour. I lasted a couple months. What it did was it taught me how to light. So I learned old school lighting.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have strobes back then. We had hot lights.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah. I mean, a lot of the old glamour photographers shot with hot lights, and you used. It was crazy how much light it was. It was like 10, 20,000 watts.
Yeah.
So the models
Those are
would
serious.
bright. It was some serious light.
Yeah.
But it was pretty stuff. But it was all big cameras. So I learned how to do that. I discovered fashion in 1976. I was involved in the hunt for the first black Playboy centerfold.
Nice. How was that?
Yeah.
I know that was a huge breakthrough.
It was fun. I learned how to shoot black folks.
Yes.
Black women are way different in all kinds of ways than white women are.
Mm-hmm.
They're more soulful, and the tones that you can get out of black skin are way more interesting. The first guy I worked for, he paid like $25 to set up. So you would hand him the contact sheets, and he was dressed like a disco king.
Mm-hmm.
So he had the high shoes and the bell bottoms and the funky, all that. That's what he would say when he'd look at your stuff was, man, that's funky, that's bad, that's all this stuff. And he'd pick all these pictures, and I'd go print them up and get paid, and it was great.
You're like, money, thank you.
Yeah, great. Fine. My first studio was 2,000 square feet. It was on top of a grocery store. The walls were made out of cardboard, so I painted them white, and that's what I put my lights into.
Okay.
It had a dark room.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I finally had to leave it when I got married. I ended up working for my last catalog. Everything in Chicago at the time was catalog work. So
okay.
We would do room scenes and chrome wheels and hands.
Mm-hmm.
I learned to do hands in a catalog house, and I'm a really good hand photographer. I love hands. If I go out on an editorial shoot, I look at the eyes and I look at hands.
Mm-hmm.
And I've sold a bunch of eyes. I do all kinds of eyeballs, and I've sold a bunch of hand pictures. You know, it's pretty much a standard.
Mm-hmm.
I usually carry a long lens. It's a 70 to 200 or 70 to 300, and I get real tight on people's faces because you can really tell a lot about a person by looking at them straight in the eyes.
Yes, I agree.
I used to shoot a lot of rock concerts, and I would go in to the rock concerts with 200, 300, 600 millimeter lenses because I wanted to get right up on the singer. Singers hide behind a microphone, and that doesn't make very good pictures.
Right.
right up intimate with him.
Yeah.
And he's excited. Anyway, you get uptight, intimate with him, and it makes a way better picture.
Especially the action shots, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, you can only shoot so many pictures of the guy holding the microphone, and
That's
then
very true.
you're done.
Yeah.
So I tried to get away from that. Uh,
Hmm.
Music is really hard to shoot because the lights are usually bad. They're not set up for photography. They're set up for other things.
Hmm. Well, I'm sure. I think like one thing that I admire about your journey is just like you've done basically decades of work, and you've seen how the transition of equipment and lighting style and execution is much different than it is like current times right now. And keeping up with the times is becoming adaptable, especially as like an artist, entrepreneur, and just being in the industry as a photographer. I think it's highly important, especially when it comes to like marketing yourself and branding yourself. I think that's like a staple that you need. And regardless of like where you start, you have to have like that foundational, when you were talking about hot lights, I think that's very important because a lot of people don't know what hot lights are. And they just know like the regular strobe, the ring lights. I was like, no, these were hot lights where like you can actually burn yourself. And it was
Been
like,
there, done that. Thank
yeah,
you.
like it was not a fun time. Like third-degree burn had nothing on these lights. So the type of skill and the type of artistry that upholds to those types of equipment, and then moving with the times from like the newspaper and then shooting catalog. Catalog was such an interesting time because it really focused on the feminine, and then also it's starting to engage more of like when we were talking about like the diversity starting in Playboy. You have to play with color, especially when you're doing different skin tones, and like how you shoot is going to be definitely different with the lighting. So I think that's really cool how you developed that, and I can definitely tell in your photography and with the photos that you sent me, you're just like a bomb person for lighting. I really appreciate like the high contrast and the saturation. So what inspires you now with like the new trend of AI and the upgrades of like your staple camera? Like, are you a Canon or Nikon or you know?
I'm still a Nikon shooter. I'm saving my pennies for Z9.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm also going to get a Hasselblad, which I haven't had in a long time. They're pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I still shoot film. Um, let's talk about this for a minute.
Okay.
Um, I wouldn't buy strobes. I can't get myself to buy strobes. I used to own $20,000 worth of strobe gear,
Wow.
and I don't have it anymore
Mm-hmm.
because you could do more with LEDs.
Right.
You could do more with ring lights are wonderful. Go buy a ring light, buy a big one. Don't buy a little one, buy a
Mm-hmm.
big one. Uh, the light wands, wonderful.
Yeah.
I bought um, I shot a movie with a 9,000 lumen flashlight I bought at Home Depot.
Nice. Home
So
Depot is a huge staple. Home Depot and Lowe's for like photography stuff,
go
like
go
the best.
before you go to the camera store. Go to Home Depot. Go to um, you know play a little bit. I was a gaffer, and we were trying to figure out how to do special effects. And I made lights out of these 5-gallon plastic jugs and spray paint that create the shadows. So I
It's a
mean, what,
yeah.
you got to learn to look at light.
Yes.
You can't just do it in the computer. I mean, it's really easy to do it in Photoshop. I do it all the time. But you got to know what light looks like. So
Lighting is very important, especially when you're trying to tell a story.
right,
Mm-hmm.
and we've got so many resources now. I have like 15,000 presets I use all the time. So you know, the world is your oyster, and I mean, young kids with computer training, you can go do anything you want. It's amazing.
No.
Um, AI
Especially
is going to be fun. Uh, um, I haven't gotten into it, but I'm close.
okay.
Just a question of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I do composites, and you know, when you look at a photograph, there are a bunch of other photographs hiding in it.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to play with the sliders. You got to make it light and dark and contrasty and whatever to
Right.
get a feel with what's there. I mean, I get 15 or 20 variations of the same picture. You won't recognize yourself by the time I get done. So,
Right.
I've done headshots for years, but why? So,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, you look at a scene and you say to yourself, what color would I like this to be?
Right.
And you can make it practically any color you want. It's like with AI, you're just going to write down the instructions and press a button and it's going to spit it out.
Yes.
Uh,
I saw somebody did I think it was like a brand that I recently just scrolled past, and they did a whole campaign just using AI. And it looked like it was professionally shot. It was like at very high class studios with intense lighting, photography. But all I did was type in what they wanted, gave them like their brand stuff, and it just spit it out like that. And I was just like, wow.
yeah.
I was completely amazed. I mean, it does save a lot of time, but I respect AI and how that works when it's used for good. Um, but I always like commend to the human experience of creating something, and I think that's more valuable since now it can be created like within 2 seconds. So
Yeah. The interesting thing now is the cameras are so easy to use,
mhm.
you don't have to know anything. So, seriously, I mean,
Just going in blind.
do it in blind, set it for automatic, have a wonderful day. A program, it's easy. Take it into Photoshop, do the sliders, go nuts. Easy.
Hmm.
The thing I like to watch is the young kids shooting videos with their cell phones, where they throw them in the air and all kinds of other
Oh, it
stuff.
gives me a heart attack.
Oh, it's wonderful.
I'm like, don't
It's so
break your
cool.
phone.
They probably do, but phones are cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, depending on what it is, like, phones lately are really expensive. And it's just because people do use it for work. And now, like, the camera, instead of, like, buying, like, the DSLR and, like, the whole equipment. And I think that's also why, like, legit camera equipment has gone, like, interesting fluctuating price depending on like what era comes out or like the newest piece comes out, because everybody's just basically trying to condense their equipment for like traveling. And nowadays it's just like I would love to have my phone to do it, so I'll buy like the higher quality phone so I can take awesome photos. That also makes me have less work in post production, you know but going with
My
the times.
my girlfriend shoots with her iPhone all the time and wins photography awards left and right.
No.
So
You're like, you're always on your phone.
the other thing is, not only is photography equipment is going to go on sale in a big way between now and December or January, just because the economy is in a bad way.
Yeah, I can
So I mean,
imagine.
yeah, I mean, if camera stores are one of the first things that goes out of business.
Hmm.
So all that stuff will show up on eBay soon. Um,
Yeah.
it's
I
just,
still have, I think I've gotten two like old school film cameras because my first photography class was like black and white film photography in college, and I absolutely in love with it. I loved, doing the dark room and the chemicals and actually taking the time with it. And I think that's what made me appreciate photography a little bit more before I went into digital, because you actually learn how to capture a lens, and actually it's just complete manual.
well,
So
you learn about light
yes.
because film has 9 different tones.
Hmm.
Digital has 250. So it's like when I shoot digital, I don't really care what the exposure is. I mean, it's sort of right, but
Right.
I'm going to take it in Photoshop and play with it anyway.
Hmm.
And a lot of times best thing you can do is make a mistake, because it's a much more interesting picture that way than if it were properly exposed. A lot of people are getting tired of digital because they're all perfect. So
Yeah.
You know, I own the domain name filmphotog.com.
Oh, okay.
I have a lot of my old work was found at a garage sale by an art collector, so I got it back.
Oh, okay.
There's
You're like,
boxes
that's
of-
mine.
I got this crazy phone call from a guy. Are you Ken Sexton? Yeah. Were you a photographer in Chicago? Yeah. Did you work for Gamma? Yeah, I did. And turns out he bought all this stuff for like $50, and
Wow.
it's thousands of negatives from the 70s. They're all black and whites. There's some unique emulsions that aren't made anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The dog's insisting on being a monster.
Oh. It's okay. My cat's just staring at me at the moment.
Okay.
But no, for $50, like with those type of stills now, I am surprised it was only $50.
Well, I am too, but nobody knew what it was.
Well, that's also important.
There were a lot of news photos from the 70s. There were famous people. I shot for Gamma Liaison, which is a French agency.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the largest in the world. I worked for the Oak Brook Polo Club. They were one of my clients. It took me a year to get the assignment. I got it. I took a year because I wanted to photograph Prince Charles. So I got to photograph Prince Charles. I got up close and personal with him. Not for very long, but
full conversation.
Yeah. Who are you, and go away. But no, he wanted to know if I was paparazzi.
Oh, yeah.
I said no, I'm the club photographer, but I was really from Gamma. So I missed him falling off the horse. My girlfriend at the time got the picture. So we held the lab open over the weekend, got the film processed, called the special courier to get it on an airplane out of Chicago, and the airport was closed.
Wow.
Went to New York by 7 o'clock the next morning for the news magazines. So it was, when back in the old days, you had to think fast. And,
you had to be adaptable, literally. Like, the time management was definitely within the blood to work, because nowadays all you can just do is send like a link, or
I know.
it takes like a millisecond or something, or a PDF, and it's just like you have to send it by mail, especially if it was like somebody of high stature, because it has to be like secured. So no, that's awesome though.
So anyway,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to come out with, I haven't seen a lot of these pictures in years, so I'm going to scan them and see what they look like.
Well, that's pretty cool though.
It's great cool.
Yeah. I mean, like, looking back, that's like a part of you, and then just saying like the people that you shot, like different memories. I love looking at old photos like that, because you don't get to look at something like that. Everything's like either on the phone or on like the computer. It kind of takes like the organic and like the memory of it, and a little bit of the magic, I do have to say. I think it's highly like important that the appreciation still resides in that. But I do have to ask, since you did mention like now King Charles, whatever, who was your favorite person to like photograph out of your whole roster?
Mother Teresa. I shot her too.
Wow.
It was pretty wild.
Tell me that experience.
It was um, in Mayor Daley's office. Mayor Daley was the king of Chicago for years. Um, he was called the boss, and he would call me by my first name. I'd walk into his office and he'd wave and say, "Hi, Ken." I'd say, "Hi, back." So Mother Teresa came in, and she is little and quiet and really peaceful. And I, got up with a long lens right in her face and looked into her eyes. Um, she would, you could feel her leave her body. She would, you could feel her go up and flat around the room. So she was an unusual person.
Strong energy, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, just amazing stuff. It reminds me how powerful older women are because of their general presence. They just are. So it was a pretty spiritual experience.
That's amazing. I don't think anything could top that, really. I was shocked that you were going to say Mother Teresa. I did not see that coming at all. But that's awesome. That's really awesome, and you can't have those kind. It's so special. Like when you were talking about like those kind of spiritual moments, like the different energy that people brings, like how you say, like, you can kind of see the person's soul when you're looking through the eyes and you're up close. I think that type of engagement nowadays is kind of just lost. And I was recently just talking to my mom about this. I was just like, engagement with somebody, like an actual human being, is just completely different. And I know like COVID kind of like amplified more of the digital because nobody could go anywhere and the engagement couldn't be like to person. But I think we cherish it more now. It's a little bit more than what we did whenever we did come back from COVID, and we were able to appreciate like what it is to be engaged and fully like aware of that person's energy, as well as just like being in somebody's like presence when it's just like nice, positive, and peaceful. And I think a lot of people don't have peace, so sometimes you can kind of feel like people's in like anxiety or like questioning everything. So when you find a peaceful person to work with, I think that's a beautiful thing. Lately, once in a lifetime thing, really.
Couple of things. Because we're artists, we don't operate on an earthly plane. We operate up here someplace. It's a much more spiritual thing than normal people deal with. This is why I heard a comment the other day about wanting to know what color the sky is in your world. And that's kind of valid because I live in a different world than, some guy who builds houses or is an accountant, or I mean, this is just not our thing.
Right.
So I think that the nice thing about we had a lot of star children born after the millennium. So a lot of the millennials are star children. They've got way more interesting spiritual connections than we've seen on the planet before. So that's something to take into consideration. An artist, a true artist, works intuitionally. They don't work technically. I mean, I know technical things, but I know technical things so well that I just do it. You just know.
I completely agree.
That's something you got to nurture. I mean, this is why telling somebody to specialize is so worthless, because you've got to explore to get a feel for how all this stuff works. If you specialize in one thing, like taking a picture of a glass of brandy all day, there are all kinds of things floating around outside that you just never see. So I was lucky. I used to get, every time I showed my portfolio, the guys would look at it and they'd say, "Ken, buddy, you're all over the place." Yeah, I know. So, what do you want from me?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you got to take those chances. I took those chances because I couldn't make any money. I mean, so
Hey,
if somebody called up and said, "Will you take this picture?" Oh, yes. I need, food for the house and rent, and sure, I'll
exactly.
go do it. Cars, sure, we do those. Babies, sure. Weddings, well, maybe not. Um, they're okay.
Is it about wedding photography?
I shouldn't talk
Select.
about
It's a select group. It's a select group. I tell you, I hated it. That was my second like photo job was before like shooting. Well, it's same in line for like college photography when like sororities and like fraternities did like big parties and they needed like a photo booth, and I used to work the photo booth, and I'm like, is this what college is?
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, okay, no, no,
Oh, I know what
sorry.
it was. When I worked in the catalog houses, we used to shoot little pieces of cloth, about an inch square, and you had to make sure that the um, weaving was straight. I hated it. It was so boring. Oh,
I'm sure. I mean, like, but I think we had to go through it to actually see what we liked and what we didn't.
I
But
think that's probably true too.
yeah, yeah, because it's
I
just like,
mean,
you can't say you don't like something when you never tried it. So, like, I knew I didn't like wedding photography because I was just like, I have to deal with, like, I just want to focus on the bride and the groom, but everybody else is just making it more comfort. Like, I didn't want to deal with that, especially coming from, like, that's a whole different type of, like, customer service. You're, like, the wedding
oh
ringer
man,
and trying to get everybody together. Like, okay, I need to get this shot and you steal you. I'm like, no, that was not my
yeah,
thing. And I saw that.
no,
Mm-mm.
no, I'm a news photographer. I chase people down the street. Wedding. Nah, sorry, buddy. What do you mean I'm in your grandpa's way? Too bad.
Excuse me. I could just say it now. No, but just to go back to what you were saying, like um, spirituality, I I was laughing because I kind of wiped my personal Instagram and I started anew because again, as human beings, we evolve. So certain old things fall off and you evolve into something higher than, hopefully, when you choose that journey, you evolve into something better than you were yesterday. So I wiped it, and my mom's like, why did you wipe your Instagram? It's just like, that doesn't align with me anymore. And focusing on alignment and, what that defines for you, it looks differently than everybody else. And just because like people express it as artists a different way doesn't mean it's right or wrong or good or bad. And and I think that's one thing I love about artistry, regardless if it's like whatever medium, it's just what is felt, you know
Right.
and it brings a discussion of um just organic discussion about like, what do you get from like this painting, this picture, this feeling of whatever medium that somebody is working with. I think when you become aligned with somebody, as well as a spiritual person as myself, I think that's very powerful. And lately, it can be like a trend to be spiritual, and it's just like, honey, I wish I could tell you it's a trend, but it's not. It is not for the weak, because you're not going to be understood by many. You're going to be ostracized most of the time, either looked as a crazy person or just like not understood. You don't fit in, and there's a reason why you don't fit in. You're supposed to stand out. You're supposed to be all over the place because you're looking at the bigger picture. And I think when you evolve, you start looking at the bigger picture instead of just this little peephole that is given to you to look at. Is that? I feel like
It
I
makes
feel like that makes,
perfect
yeah.
sense. Let's back up a little bit. Um, I closed my studio in Chicago in 1988.
Mm-hmm.
I was forced to, and it made me practically suicidal, which is why the pictures ended up at the garage sale
Yeah.
for the art dealer to buy. But anyway, I started a spiritual journey that has lasted for more than 30 years, and I got into a lot of things. Christianity was a big one. Horoscopes are a big one. Um, Spiritual energy is another big one because I didn't realize that I was an empath. I can feel people's emotions, and that's something you want to recognize as an artist because, like, I can feel the emotions with people who I'm photographing. They don't know that I can do that, but I can do that.
Right.
There are tricks that I get to use to make the face work, and that's where it's coming from. Uh, so when you come to me, we probably won't smile like a cheerleader, and we will probably do other things. You know, I like cheerleaders and I like smiles, but I think we're going to go a little deeper than that because you have to listen to what's going on up here in the cosmos. Because they're telling you things. The other thing is that you shouldn't be afraid to start a spiritual journey because if you don't start it, it will be started for you.
Hey,
so
spiritual time. Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, and it's rough when you get forced into it instead of just gradually accepting and like willing to go through that instead of just pushed into purpose of that type of alignment. But the good thing is, it's just like, to me, that means that you have something bigger to complete on this path.
We all have something bigger. I mean, we seriously do. It's that I'm a firm believer. Hang on. I'm a firm believer in infinity.
Mm-hmm. And we got frozen.
Clear?
There we are. There we go.
Okay. And that's why I say, as an artist, you're more apt to understand the workings of the universe because you're on a different plane and you have a better grasp of what infinite things are. Most people work with finite things. We don't do that. We deal with infinity. So
it's very powerful.
Pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah. Well,
anyway, where are we at?
You're
in Dallas, right?
Yes, I am in Dallas. So yeah, I'm in Dallas for right now, and then whatever takes me, I'll go. But no, I'm in Dallas. My family's here. Well, my mom and everybody else in my family is like in Indianapolis, so I kind of go back and forth with that. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, but no, I think I got a lot more out of you than what I thought it was going to be, but I was pleasantly surprised. I was pleasantly surprised. And I think that's why I wanted to start this channel, because I wanted to feel organic. And, you know, when you have something scripted, it's just like, it just sounds like everything else. Like, I want it to be non-niche, like, to be like the full truth of the person, like authenticity is what I love.
I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
I thought it was a wonderful idea. So keep on. Don't stop.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. No. And I'm just here to support other artists through the transition and, you know, not feeling seen, or they want to be seen. Like, I love supporting people because, like, I know what it feels like when you don't feel seen and you're doing all this work, but, like, at the end of the day, it's not for you to feel seen. It's just putting your work out organically, because you know you're going to attract the right people.
Right.
And, you know, and I just want to be aligned in the goodness of that, and to help, you know, promote, share, like, people's artwork. I know Brown Girls Brewery, they have an event on May 13th, and I wanted to share that. It's just like, I just like helping people, and this is my own creative way to do that, and getting to know different people too. And I feel like social media sometimes kind of separates that organicness between human beings. You know, I just wanted to bring that in, and I'm meeting cool people like you.
Yeah,
So it's fun.
social media is going to have to change um, soon because it's just not serving us anymore. Uh, Facebook and Instagram don't really do us any good anymore. So,
Yeah.
something else has got to give. Um, the other thing as an artist, the thing you've got to do is you've got to get to the point where you don't care what people think.
Yep.
You I got there um, in the 90s. Um, I, I worked in a film that was horrible. Oh, it was so bad. Not only it was so bad, but I hear the guy finally got national distribution for it.
Oh.
But I mean, I ended up, I was the gaffer, and I ended up firing the director of photography at 3 o'clock in the morning because he was nuts.
Wow.
But I stopped and I went to the library and I decided that I didn't know anything about marketing, didn't know anything about photography. I read every yellow pages in the library. I wanted to see what was going on around the country.
Mm-hmm.
And that took me a couple months, but it was really interesting because I was in such a finite place. I had to get out of there somehow. So that pretty much got me going in a new direction. Uh, the internet comes along, and the internet was cool because you could send your stuff anywhere.
Right.
And we could never do that before. I mean, we'd have to put it in the mail or up on a wall or something. Once it gets on the web, you're more likely to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
I've had to do a lot of work, computer work, that I had to go learn it. I had to learn how to do websites, and I had to learn SEO and all that other junk.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to know that. Otherwise, nobody will look at your work because they can't find it.
Yeah.
So,
No, you're right.
What's that?
I said you're correct, and I think that's one thing a lot of people don't understand. It's just like you do have to do your due diligence of whatever field that you're going into. Like, there's so many free programs to learn, and like also tons of interviews of people who possibly are kind of like aligned to what you're wanting to do. It's just a lot of free knowledge out there that is actually useful, and to use it to your advantage, I think that's a brilliant thing to have. Like I was saying, like, you got to market yourself as your own brand instead of, if you, especially if you don't have the funds, going back to the thing where you're just like, when you have no money, you have a different type of drive. You got to make yourself as much knowledgeable as you can, to succeed into what you want to do. You can't just say, I want this, and not know what you're doing.
Right.
Because you're not going to get
there. One of the things I tell people is I know how to do stuff. Mm-hmm. Stuff, if you're a photographer, you have to know how to do stuff because people want you to do all these crazy things that aren't possible. And you can't find the stuff, and they don't have any money. And they're nice people, and you like them and all, and you got to figure out stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's a skill, knowing how to find weird things that people need.
Consumerism.
It's a good selling point. I've had major corporations in here paying a consulting fee to tell them how to do stuff. So I mean, all this research you've done on the internet over the years, that pays off.
It does.
So,
and then also it's free too. That's helpful. that is really helpful. Instead of like trying to go back to school and spending thousands of dollars, it's helpful when
But,
it's free and it's actually good.
well, that's like that where, as a society, we let an entire generation down because of the student debt crisis. For you to go spend $100,000 on schooling and flip burgers at a fast food restaurant is worthless. I,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just incredible. It's an incredible sin. It's all these creative minds that can't pay their student loans is mindless, and it's the bank's fault, and it's the college counselor's fault. You guys they should know better.
Yeah.
So, uh,
Like, I remember working 2 jobs in college, and I was taking business classes and art classes because my mom's like, well, I don't want you to be a starving artist. And it's just like, that's true. But, I know where my heart lies. But at the same time, I was just like, I don't even know, looking back at what I was doing in college, I don't even know how I survived mentally holding 2 jobs down, also full time in school, working nights, I had no life. All
I
I
don't know
had
why
was the
I
little money
survived my
I had
whole.
in peace. Yeah, so no, I get that struggle. Hopefully, even the UK, and then it's just like other countries knows how to do that very well. It's just like free education because like, and you get the best. And also I feel like it matters with the teachers too. The teachers matter, and that holds weight. And I remember all my teachers. Like even when I was a little kid, I remember my teachers. I remember the bad ones, and I also remember the good ones. The good ones kept me there, kept me like focused, and they were the ones that's just saying like, yes, fundamentally you got to go within the box. But there were some teachers that were okay with me coloring outside the lines because that's how my brain worked. And you also have teachers where it's just like they're just there, you're just another kid or a student, and it's just like their lights off, and it's just not the best experience, and that energetically goes out to all the students, and that's just really disappointing to see. But I know how, especially now, like the whole teaching thing is, it's a whole nother
Well,
arena. Crazy.
I took 13 years off and taught driver's ed,
Oh, you did?
so teaching experience, and it was really a good thing. It was life changing. Um, I was a good teacher because of all the people that I brought through the studio and taught them to pose and do things,
Mm-hmm.
make stuff, whatever. So artists are natural teachers. You can teach anything. So um, the other thing about business, I tell young artists that the first thing you want to do is go learn how to read stock charts
Mm-hmm.
because you're going to have to be self-financed with that blockchain and Bitcoin and all that stuff coming out.
Mm-hmm.
We have a chance to be financially independent. And it's a really easy to learn stock charts because you'll have to know how to do them. It'll take you 2 days to learn it on YouTube.
Oh.
If you go to a bank and tell them that you're an artist, they will laugh at you.
Yeah.
They will do nothing for you. They
She's like,
will
great.
they will give you a checking account and send you on your way, or a savings account, send you on your way. So, uh, learn to be. It's easy to be financially independent if you take the time to go read stock charts and don't listen to your banker.
Yeah.
Nice guy, but don't listen to him.
No, but Mr. Sexton, I just really appreciate you coming on here and taking your time out to sit with me and to talk to me about your journey through photography and how your mind works. Um,
I had a great time.
Well, I had a great time too.
It was a great time. It was fun.
I feel like you should go on live more
I probably
and
should.
like talk about your things. You have such incredible knowledge. No, but no, it was pure enjoyment, and I just really appreciate you, and and sometimes, like I tell people all the time, it's just like I'm shooting in the dark every time that I reach out because most likely it looks like spam or so no, I just really appreciate you accepting and then working with me trying to get the times right, and then just sharing your knowledge and your mindset and your good energy. So
I'm glad to do it.
yeah,
I had a wonderful
I
time.
thank you. I thank you so much. And then I'll have this posted on YouTube either, I think tomorrow morning I will have it on there. So that'll be listed. And then I think for the end of the week, I'll have all the shorts in the feed. So no, but I'm just really appreciative of what you do and what you stand for. So I'm very grateful for your time.
I had a wonderful experience. I'm glad we met.
I'm glad.
Don't be a stranger.
No, come talk to me anytime. I promise.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
All right, you guys have a good night. Thank you so much for joining in.
Bye-bye.
Bye.